biggest thing I see players struggle with when getting by defenders isn't usually the first step, but what happens when they get here. At some point, you get a little bit of resistance from your defender. I call it the point of resistance, and what you do here is what changes everything. Being able to turn the corner or even just keep your momentum downhill can immediately make you a way more valuable player, as you're able to get a ton more opportunities at the rim and even just paint touches to create advantages for your team. So in this video, I'll go over how you can get past this point every time and make getting by defenders that much easier. And if you're interested in how to train for this and tons of other skills, make sure to check out the Virtual Academy app, which has programs for almost anything you can imagine and has success stories from thousands and thousands of hoopers around the globe. The link will be in the description. So the first technique to do this is what I call slipping around defenders. In other words, once you get here, finding a way to kind of slide by them like you'll see in this clip, primarily by using shoulder movement. In other words, either turning this way to clear that shoulder a bit.
Now what most people don't understand is that if I go like this, he falls this way, right? His momentum is working against him. So as I'm driving to the basket here, if he's creating that contact, what you'll see is this slippery clear of the shoulder most times, where you're able to use his momentum, now you're buying.
Or the opposite, rotating or leaning into them while taking a really tight angle and getting in front of them here. This is especially valuable for times when the defender is a bit behind you, but plays you physically to make up for it. But we also got to keep ball placement in mind here, because you have to keep the ball far enough away from this defender in close quarters, but also make sure we don't get pushed too far into this gap defender and turn it over. So this is definitely something to work on. Now, other times, they'll just play really good defense in that initial attack, and you may have to re-angle yourself.
He's already still kind of moving here, and then you try to take a tight angle even when he's already here. On that one, you did a really good job of readjusting your angle. So you saw that he was going to cut off, and then you kind of went here to take a wider one, and then that then allows you to go by there. So that's something to think about. If you get cut off, just try to create a new angle.
So you can see this here where the initial angle of Shai's attack is here, but once he gets cut off, he stabs his foot into the ground to turn his angle out a bit wider and sneak by. Sometimes it's a super small adjustment like these.
Burton gets all the way to the rim, it gets hit.
But other times it'll end up being a wider angle, where if there's no gap defender here, you can really angle it out wide and essentially turn it into a foot race with the defender. Even exaggerating it like this at times if you feel like a tight angle is going to be tough. And if you can combine this with a speed change like this to get them on their heels and then get out wider, that's tough to guard. Next is really using the off arm, which is incredibly valuable because as soon as they get a hand on you, which happens 99% of the time, you can also use yours to pry at their arm and essentially push them backwards like you see here.
If they play handsy, you can play handsy as well. Now, same thing, talking about momentum. If I go like this, I end up projecting myself forward and him backwards. No ref is ever going to call this. I would even argue it's legal. So most times if I see that off arm, I'm using that to blow by there.
At a high level, it's a constant arm battle. And if you can get super strong with your off arm, it can help you turn pretty good defense into an easy blow by. Now, speaking of physicality, being the first one to bump here is also huge, especially if you've already gotten down a bit deeper near the lane. In other words, if you get a downhill attack going and you can just sense that you're going to get some resistance or contact, being the first one to hit like this is actually going to prevent you many times from having to use these techniques. It just takes you having a hit first mindset. Other times you will get bumped first, it happens, but being basketball strong enough to stay composed and deliver a counter bump here afterwards is huge. Which is why we'll work on drills like this a lot, where you get bumped and have to stay composed through that contact. Now, whereas a bump is a quick burst of contact, we can also create more sustained physicality here, where you get halfway cut off, but instead of turning back, you're cool with it. And you use this shoulder to hip to just keep pushing down towards the basket. So many players expect to fully beat defenders off the dribble, but the reality of it is that many times they're going to stay with you. You just got to be comfortable enough with some physicality to keep moving slowly but surely down to the paint, get to 2 feet with some control, and play it from there. Now, other times they'll do a fantastic job of cutting you off, and that's part of the game. But here's where a Barkley post-up is a fantastic option, where you simply turn a drive into a post-up. Now you're already in a good scoring area, ready to either drive again off of this or play make, since the entire defense now has their heads turned towards you. And then of course, other times just countering and changing direction the other way is going to be essential. But if you can get to a point where the defense has to fully sell out for you to counter back the other way, you're going to be a super tough guard. Now quickly, 2 of my favorite drills here for this are 1, single side drives, where you can only drive one way.
Once you choose which direction you go, you have to go that way. So if you choose to go left, even if he tries to cut you off here, you have to find a way to get around that and still get downhill. You can choose either way to go. 1, 2. Yes. Good angle.
As well as shoulder bump 1v1 where the offense and defense purposefully collide with some force, and then you play it from there. Both sides have to recover, stay composed, and try to find a nice angle. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, took something from it. As always, appreciate you guys for tuning in. Until next time.